And we're here in Wilmington, North Carolina for the start of Stanford versus Georgia. Georgia receiving in the white, Stanford in the black. I'm Brian Jones here with Mario O'Brien, part of Next Gen Network's coverage of 2012 College Easterns. And things get started, and Stanford comes out with a zone. It's been a windy day here in Wilmington. Fletcher Hartline with the disc.
You know, this should be an interesting game, Brian. Stanford, coming off their last big tournament, was at the Stanford Invite. They did not play Centex.
They did not play at Centex.
And I'm sure that they've been watching these other teams play at Centex. I'm sure they're amped for this tournament and super pumped for this game.
So that was Caleb Edwards with the disc number 17. I moved around. Georgia doing an efficient job of dump swinging here. Leonard upfield. No Elliott Erickson on the field so far. Charlie Herrig looking for the underneath, finding Edwards.
Just a straight backhand mark so far from Stanford.
Just moving it around and big swings and bowled it. And finally, it comes back to haunt Georgia, who was just slamming those swings around. Put a little bit of touch on those throws, and they're completed.
Yeah, Georgia tried to do the right thing. They were stuck on the sideline. Dump, swing, attack upfield. Unfortunately, just did not execute the final element, the upfield pass.
Stanford victorious over Michigan earlier in the day. Georgia losing to Michigan. Got implications for tiebreakers. And Georgia coming up to the D. Walters getting the D for Georgia. Herrig coming back this year from injury, playing a big role, but we have Leonard picking up the disc. Max Leonard's main handler. Trying to fit it in, and does so to Herrig. Squeezing it in for the goal. 1-0, Georgia leads.
That's a sneaky throw, and as a defender, you're saying, what can I even do better? I was in the right position. My mark did their job. Unfortunately, a great throw by Georgia leads to a goal. So Stanford from the West Coast, Georgia here from the Southeast Conference. Brian, is there any one region that is obviously head over heels above any other region in the nation right now?
And if there's one region that's going to be like that, it's the North Central. The potential for 5 bids total. 1/4 of the national field could come from the North Central.
North Central, we're talking about
Wisconsin,
Carleton,
Minnesota,
Luther,
Iowa. And right now we have Iowa, Minnesota, Carleton, and Wisconsin pretty much safely in the top 20. Luther is the team that could, in the next weekend, leapfrog some other teams to get into the top 20. They're right now ranked in the mid-20s after they came out, played horribly without Eric Johnson earlier in the season at Free State Classic, had a great Centex, making the semifinals, defeating Colorado among other teams. Stanford with the pull. Stanford not with the pull. Stanford receiving.
Looking at your screen just to avoid any confusion, it's the white line that is out of bounds, not the yellow line. Stanford setting up in a side stack, looking to isolate a cutter out in the middle of the field. Stanford coached by Martin Cochran. I wouldn't be surprised to see them execute this perfectly.
Putting it deep for Funk. Funk can't get to it. He got a lot closer than I expected, though. His layout moves the end line.
Take a look at this, Huck. Just a little too far for the Stanford receiving. Wind probably got a hold of this one, made it uncatchable.
Ellie Erickson out in the field now, number 5 in the deep area and trying to get in position for a ballot. Huck. Georgia makes the grab. See Erickson in sweatpants. The reasoning is because he's actually had a hamstring injury, and he's worn sweatpants to keep that hamstring warm and loose.
You know, it's maybe not necessarily a good look, but certainly functional.
Georgia searching around, running his man, and a big block by Stanford. Call back on the foul. Georgia.
You've seen pretty disciplined offense. Well, different disciplined setup from both. In this case, it leads to a goal. That's the benefit of running a tight vertical stack. Those spaces on both sides of the stack are going to be wide open for cone cuts. Leads to the goal.
Georgia able to convert to make it 2-0 so far. And this has a bid allocation written all over it. Stanford all the way at 18th, just inside the top 20. Waiting for a bit of bad performance here can do them in. And Georgia at 22nd, just outside, looking in. Needs to have a good tournament this weekend to get in to the top 20 and get another bid for the Southeast.
So far, only man-to-man defense has been played. One force going one way. So far today, we've seen quite the variety of defensive styles on this field. University of North Carolina came out. They're known for their force middle, and it was effective. UNCW came out playing a lot of junk, also effective. So far in this game, it's been all just man-to-man.
Georgia is a team that when I've watched them this year, they've liked to go on runs. And taking advantage here right now. Looks like they're going to be running some sort of zone. 2-3-2. No, it looks like almost a trap zone. Interesting. A four-man cup with two men not letting them try to go back. Funk moving it to Jeffrey. Cup being very tight. Funk getting the disc back. Looking for Newcomb, can't find him. Call on the play.
You know, the setup, it ends up looking like a four-man cup. It's actually three defenders with one responsibility sort of set up vertically, and their job is to force it one way. Then there's three defenders sort of in the middle of the field behind them, and their responsibility is to take away the upfield pass. Whatever side the disc is on, they force that way. And the goal of this defense is to push all the way to a sideline and make the defense throw over the top or throw a difficult throw.
Stanford has tried to whittle their way through this zone as opposed to go over the top. Funk looking around, finding Jeffrey. And now Georgia gets a clean block, or what looked like a clean block. Coming in on 0. Jeffrey finding Funk. These two players are the two pistons that make the engine run for Stanford. Just popping in and out through the zone with handlers. And Georgia going to man and immediately forces a turn. Erickson hitting his man deep, too far. Erickson needed to hesitate a little bit to try to hit Fletcher Hartline deep.
And we've seen it a few times. If you're going to throw a huck in wind, your hucks have to be flat. If you put any type of blade on that throw, the wind is going to affect it. It's going to push it down sooner than it would normally be if there was no wind. The flatter you throw a huck in the wind, the longer it's going to hang, the more time your receiver is going to have to run on.
Funk now in the middle of the zone. Again, just still handler popping by Stanford. And unleashes a hammer. A lot of calls here from the Georgia defense. You can tell that they're prepared to switch the man very quickly. Unified voice. And overthrown in a D by Max Leonard. Leonard trying to hit Erickson. Erickson having a chance to make the catch and can't get there, and it looks like that hamstring may be pulled.
I'm going to take a look at this one. Now, getting back to that idea of throwing a flat hook, that's the difference here. He made this one catchable. Sometimes all you got to do is give your receiver a chance to make a play. Throwing a flatter hook gives your receiver that chance. Yeah, it also gives the defense a chance. But an opportunity for a goal missed there for Georgia.
Georgia setting some sort of two-defender zone on the handler. Call on the play.
Stanford actually did a really good thing. The handler was set up behind and was getting face guarded. He cleared out, and what that did is it opened up a big swing pass, which Stanford just hit.
Moving it around the zone, Jeffrey, quick movement. Put out the space, big layout for the grab. Another hammer to the opposite field.
That's an incredible throw. Cross-field blade hammer.
Makes the catch in the end zone as the line gets ripped up. Stanford gets on the board, and Georgia cannot take advantage of it. A chance to go up 3-0. Things can kind of calm the nerves now for that Stanford offense.
Yeah, and a good defensive possession for Georgia. They forced a lot of tough throws, a couple cheeky throws. They generated a turnover. Unfortunately, weren't able to convert. And, you know, the offense, Stanford's offense eventually converts.
We'll see if Erickson can return to the game. If not, that's going to be a big loss for the squad, not just for this game, but for the rest of the tournament.
Wind's picking up a little bit. Definitely having an effect on any huck that's going to go up in this game. You know, I think that favors Stanford a little bit. I think Stanford is okay playing small ball, dink and dunk, and working the disc. Georgia, from the footage I've watched, they like to huck it quite a bit more than Stanford. And if it stays windy, advantage Stanford.
Leonard. Trying to, not many options available here for Georgia with this four-man cup. It looks like we're going to see a primarily zone game, and there's a receiver hanging out behind Funk.
The zone you're seeing right now is a 1-3-2-1. There's one mark, a wall of three, two wings, and then a deep defender.
Georgia with the drop there, giving Stanford the turnover and the chance to tie this game. Jordan Jeffrey going to pick up the disc. Play restarts. Back to Jeffrey. Beautiful breakthrough to Funk. Continuation over. Cutter comes in underneath. A big collision there. You can hear that one up all the way up here.
Lots of contact. I think we're going to see the contact happen after the disc was actually missed. Observer correctly rules no foul on this play.
Georgia will get another chance of going upwind. If this game is going to turn into those downwind upwind breaks, I do like Stanford's chances to be able to dink and dunk through with Jeffrey and Funk.
Yeah, Funk is a big, strong guy, very confident handler.
Leonard getting around, blades it over. Can't make the catch along the sideline. Stanford will get another shot.
And here's what, going back to what I said about why I like Stanford, take a look at the shots already that Georgia's taken. One of the goals they scored was a big, ill-advised huck that was caught in the middle of the field. Now we're seeing a blade turnover on the sideline.
Leonard not hesitating. Just outside the end zone. Could have been flipped in for the score. Back to Herrig. Herrig dishes it over to Walters for the score. And Georgia up 3-1. Walters accidentally hitting his man on the spike, going up and giving him a hug. Decreasing tensions immediately.
Way to de-escalate the situation, Georgia.
Georgia, though, finding a way to score up line after Leonard able to unleash that huck. And we saw the footage earlier from warm-up this year. Leonard is going to put it a lot.
Yeah, and in the wind, it's not a bad strategy. If there are a lot of turnovers going on in a game, why not have those potential turnovers or potential great plays happen in the end zone? The last game we watched between UNCW UNCW and UCF, a lot of turnovers happening around the disc. If you take a couple of those plays and you just put them to the end zone, yeah, sometimes you're going to turn it over, but you were already turning it over around the disc anyways. Why not just put it to the end zone if you're going to play in a game like that?
Take a higher percentage score rather than just working it up the field. Definitely. Especially if you have the tools to do it, if you have athletic players and players that can put it in the wind. And Leonard definitely is no slouch when it comes to just putting it upfield as far as possible. See Erickson hanging out. Elliot Erickson on the far sideline. Not really with his teammates. Trying to get hopefully back into this game.
Stanford setting up vert stack.
I don't think I've seen Jeffrey take a sub this game so far. Lenny Newcomb. Almost underthrown. The opportunity by Georgia.
Stanford cutters are a little bit too deep right now. As you can see, they're all creeping back in, knowing that they only have one option if they stay deep.
Big hand block by Georgia on the goal line. Had that one read to rights.
Excellent job by the mark, knowing his role and sticking to it.
Georgia looking for the break. Leonard puts it on the line, finds his receiver. Fletcher Hartline catches it for the goal. Georgia up 4-1 now on Stanford.
You know, and the difference here is that Georgia's just making plays. They made a play on that huck earlier in the game. They make a hand block, and here we are, 4-1.
And this has a potential to put, if Georgia continues on this road and wins this game, there's the potential for a three-way tie in this pool with Michigan. Michigan beating Georgia, Stanford beating Michigan. And it's going to come down to point differential. Not only does every point matter, but it will, for the rankings, it will matter even more so for pre-quarters. Just talking about red zone efficiency, we've talked about it all day long. In Georgia right now, 4 for 4 when they get close to the goal line. That's a huge conversion rate, and that's the reason why they're up 4-1 right now.
Yeah, you got to punch it in. If you're an elite team, you're scoring in the red zone 9 out of 10 times. Anything less than that means you're not being as efficient as you need to be to win high-level games.
Right now, you're Elliot Erickson. I'm just going to keep taking a break, go up to my teammates on the sideline and support them and hopefully continue this run. This pole floating in the air. We go out of bounds, and it looks like this end line, this sideline is not really holding.
Sideline needs to know its role and stick to it.
Mitch Dangler, move it. One of the observers over there trying to move the sideline back into place. And this wind is still going pretty well. Vertical stack look for Stanford. Puts it deep for Jeffrey. Trying to run it down. Out of bounds.
And there it is again, Brian. The wind playing a factor. That's a relatively easy huck if there's no wind, but with these conditions, it's a tough throw. In Georgia, another opportunity to break for a 5-1 lead.
And Georgia overthrows it, giving Stanford easy possession perhaps on the goal line. We've seen a lot of funny mistakes today with this wind.
Yeah, we certainly have. These teams haven't really been able to execute effectively in the wind. It's you know, it's not necessarily that the offense isn't working, it's that simply the players are making throwing errors.
That's what it all about boils down to. Jeffrey comes up with it and dishes for the easy goal. And Stanford cutting the lead to 2. It's interesting, we haven't seen a timeout called by Stanford here. Wonder if their coaches are just letting them go and saying, hey, we got confidence, don't worry about it, you're just making mistakes. Timeouts here are only gonna make you think about it more. Yeah,
they're not, I mean, what are you gonna say in those timeouts? You don't wanna bring it in and say something negative like, don't drop the disc. That's not usually a productive use of a timeout. They're playing okay, they're making physical errors mentally, they're playing okay, they're making the right decisions. They need to trust that their system is going to get them back into this game and continue to provide opportunities.
And again, I don't think Jeffrey has taken a point off yet this game. Maybe their 3rd game of the day. This one for a bye into tomorrow. Jeffrey with a pull, and this one he wants to have back. And I think he's getting it back. It is an offsides call. Luckiest offside call I've seen in a while.
Sometimes you do get what you wish for, Brian. You got to put it out there. You got to create.
Wilmington,
you
where
gotta,
dreams
you got to put
come
it
true.
out there into space. Your dreams can't come true if you don't have the dreams.
We get set for the repull. And this one will actually be a lot better. A nice roll, actually good strategy going into the wind.
Absolutely. Sometimes when you're playing upwind, you can't play, the distance game. You have to say, we're going to have just as much advantage if we put them on the sideline immediately.
Poaching off of the handlers. Now shifting back, not letting anything upfield from the forced sideline.
Yeah, it's a flat mark here by Stanford.
And a big layout by Stanford. Gets the disc back. Jeffrey with a chance to break. Does so off the mark. Stanford's trying to get something going. Overthrown. Harry almost tips it to a receiver. Putting it deep. Nobody home.
Yeah, I think it was a good choice. Just, again, poor execution. And again, also, that's the type of thing like we were talking about before. You'd rather have a turnover in the end zone than near the handlers.
Back to Jeffrey. And another D by Georgia. They're just swarming right now on those in cuts, and throwing in the wind is slowing down those discs, and they're not getting to the receiver as fast as they'd like.
Yeah, the 8th defender on the field right now currently is the conditions. It's making all the downfield cutters have to adjust their cuts. And when they get in cuts, they're only for a few yards. And they don't even have much of an opening deep because the wind is defending it for them.
Big layout by Jeffrey is late. Just along the goal line for Georgia. Back to Leonard. Swung around. Herrig. Finding a man. Walter make the grab on the line. Dishes for the score to Edwards, and Georgia's up 5-2 in this first half.
Yeah, excellent catch there, and then just an opportunistic cut. I'm actually surprised that Stanford didn't communicate better on the mark. You're going to see that the mark probably sees the cut coming, but still just tries to force backhand, allows the easy throw.
For those of you listening in, we do have a tournament pass that can give you access to high-quality feeds here at our coverage of 2012 College Easterns. Give you a high-quality stream and a video-on-demand archive of all the games we filmed this weekend. Cost is only $10 and is available under the tournament pass menu bar on ngnultimate.com. And we have a timeout in the field, and this is our presentation of 2012 College Easterns. Next Gen Network will be back in a moment. And we're back here in Wilmington, North Carolina for the presentation of Stanford versus Georgia. Georgia up 5-2 right now, coming out of a timeout on the field. Easterns has had a long history, and I got the luxury of coming down with Sky last year to do some of my first exclusive coverage, not exclusive coverage, but major coverage of Ultimate. And last year was a doozy with Florida winning over Pittsburgh on Universe Point in the finals. Alex Hill for Florida, no longer there, but after calling a timeout on stall 8 in the back of his own end zone, Pittsburgh set up a two-man zone, and Hill wrapped a forehand around the pole. It was tipped in the air by Cole Sullivan and caught by Nathan Sage, who dished it for the win and the goal.
Wow.
And with that win, you can create some crazy close games, and every game today has been close.
Yeah, it's been fun here, at least on this field. 2 games so far, both went to Universe. Both completely different to watch. One of them pretty ugly, lots of calls, lots of physicality. The other one, a pretty clean game with excellent defensive strategy dictating the game. And here we're seeing an entirely different style from both teams as well.
Stanford trying to change things up and get momentum going on offense with a side stack, with Jeffrey featured as the isolation first cut. Putting it deep, Funk in the area. And Georgia gets the D.
That was a crazy flight disc pattern there. Hung forever.
I think we have a foul on the play. This one may be coming back.
Looks like the thrower is saying that he hit his arm before he let go of the disc. Defender obviously saying, no, you let it go and then you hit my arm. The observer is upholding the call. Disc is coming back. Seeing a flat mark here from Georgia, completely flat. And the other handlers are then sinking into the lane.
Not allowing anything to come deep. Just swung around now by Stanford, not getting any yards, and finally opening things up. Funk coming in underneath.
You know, one thing that I'm noticing just watching this game already is that Georgia has excellent sideline talk. I don't know if you can pick it up on the feed, but almost every single throw, the Georgia sideline is echoing something to the players on the field. That's another way to just give yourself the advantage by increasing your communication.
Jeffrey putting it deep, caught, and then completed for the goal. Stanford looked pretty patient there out of the timeout, waited for a good opportunity, and just relied on their star player to deliver.
Yep, good execution. A good throw in a tough situation leads to a goal.
Just a beautiful put downwind.
Yeah, Funk has really been a key for Stanford this year. I watched him a little bit at the Stanford invite, and he seems to be just their rock when they need a play or when they need someone to shut someone down. Funk seems to be there.
And Georgia's defense has been very impressive at the start of this game. You know, we went from a game where the mistakes were made by just execution errors, and right now Georgia's defense is clamping down, and Stanford has had to be patient to work it with the dumps to find the opportunity.
Yeah, Georgia's throwing a different look at Stanford every time, whether it's changing the mark, whether it's throwing some junk, whether it's communicating from the sideline. The adjustments seem to be constant for Georgia, keeping Stanford out of their rhythm.
Stanford with the pull. And Georgia will get this on the right sideline. Both teams taking their time, and Georgia coming out in a horizontal stack. Caleb Edwards and Brian Walters underneath.
Again, we're seeing a flat mark here from Stanford, and the other handlers are poaching into the lane. A lot of times that's going to allow what you're seeing right now is break throws and then advancing up the field.
Looks like we have a barn burner going on the other fields. We have North Carolina against UNC, or North Carolina versus Virginia, tied at 11s. So we get going again here. Georgia comes out to play. Excuse me, that was actually Virginia help 11-10 on Tufts, and North Carolina and Ohio tied at 10s.
Flat mark by Stanford, and the handler, that in combination with the handler sagging, is not allowing any downfield throws.
Now Fletcher comes back to handle, puts it deep. Too far for the intended receiver. It was interesting. Georgia just decided was comfortable with dump swinging it, and Leonard was able to come back and get a little bit of separation and take off from the mark and put one deep.
Yeah, the thing about the dump swing is it only gets you yards if the downfield defenders time it right. In that case, the downfield defenders weren't in sync with the handlers, and there was nothing available once the disc got swung. Of course, Georgia did a great job. They swung the disc 3 different times, but they didn't get anything out of it because that one piece was missing.
Putting it deep. Defender is there. Gets the D. And Georgia's defense continues to impress me as not giving Stanford very many options.
Here we see it, the flat mark again. And the Stanford handler defenders staying in the lane, forcing a deep throw.
Leonard putting it up deep regardless. Back for Herrig, putting it out to space. Can come underneath it, makes the grab. Georgia leads 6-3.
Georgia's defense, like you said, looks excellent, and the shots they're taking may look ill-advised, but they're coming down with some of them, and the ones they're coming down with are leading to goals.
It'll be David Hooten with the reception for Georgia.
For those of you interested, we also have a high-quality stream available for $10. You can go ahead with your membership and update your pass to get that high-quality stream. And again, if you upgrade, you will also have access to our VOD archive for the next month. Georgia's looking good right now. They definitely have the swagger. You can even hear it in the types of cheers they're doing. They're saying, they're chanting Georgia. They're feeling good. They need to keep it going.
They definitely need to keep it going. They're a team that's been prone to runs in the past. They were big on Florida early in the game. A Joint Summit Classic earlier this year. Florida coming back to win in the finals. Although they have had a great run recently, going 7-0 at Tally Classic a couple weekends ago. That's really helped them in the rankings. But they did avenge their loss to Florida at warm-up, taking down a fatigued Florida team. Stanford, on the other hand, has only really played 2 tournaments, Santa Barbara Invite and the Stanford Invite. Call on the play.
And one of the reasons that you run vert stack is to keep both sides of the field open. Right now, if he can break the mark, that break side is wide open. But if your throwers can't break the mark, you're truly only trying to work on one side of the field.
Jeffrey putting it out for a wide open receiver. Makes the grab. And we have a call on the play, a pick.
Looks like we had a pick call. That cut came from way back in the stack. Looks like the defender got caught up in the mix. Great throw there from Stanford, just putting it to space, keeping it flat, making it catchable.
North Carolina, a score update. North Carolina winning over Ohio, breaking to win 12-10. They were down in that game. Virginia keeping it close with Tufts. Tufts actually leading 12-11 currently.
So you can see where that pick actually happened, right in the middle of your screen, number 44. And he's still going to go deep. Doesn't have the advantage, but what happens is his defender helped, and it allowed another wide open underneath cut for yards.
Hunting Jeffrey underneath, trips up, still makes the grab. Looking for the around dump. Wide open underneath cutter. Being very patient here. Georgia calls a pick. Play restarts. Looks like that one was caught by the receiver just near the end zone. Up the line, Burnsham makes the catch, and Stanford finally gets back on the board. This one counts. 6-4, Georgia leads.
You know, 2 things went on here. One, it was a good cut. That the handler makes the juke move and cuts up line. You're going to see it here in a second. So that was a good thing that happened. But also, as the handler defender, the dump defender, you have to know that the one spot on the field that you can't get beat to in that situation, and in most situations when the disc is on the sideline, is up line. Trust your mark to take away the break throws and the around, because the around doesn't hurt you, especially near the end zone. What really hurts you is getting beat up line. Stanford did a great job taking advantage of that opportunity. Tough for me to watch those handler defenders get beat like that. As a handler defender myself, I pride myself on sticking to those fundamentals, and getting beat up line is the cardinal sin as a handler defender.
Handling defending is one of the hardest things to do, I think, in Ultimate, to do it well. You can do it to the point where you can contain a handler and push him back, but to actually get up there and have a chance of creating Ds, you have to play it tight. You have to play it exactly right, or else you're one wrong move from getting absolutely burned and leaving yourself in a compromising position.
Well, and it's totally about the mentality that you take. I think as a handler defender, if your mentality is to get Ds, then more often than not, you're going to give up easy throws. Your mentality as a handler defender is going to be most effective if you're setting a goal as to not allow a throw. And if you're not allowing a throw, most likely if the handler is looking to your man, that means the stall count is high. And if you shut down your man, he's going to have to throw into a more difficult situation.
Stanford electing to poach. And Georgia's still going to put it deep. Still there, makes the one-handed grab, and Georgia, everything seems to be working out for them right now.
Yeah, they're taking the right shots, and they're making plays. Plain and simple, they are making plays. They're coming up with tough grabs. They're making tough throws, and a couple of them haven't worked out, but enough of them have worked out. And here they are up 7-4 against Stanford. And this is a huge backhand. He is just hanging out deep. He wasn't even making a cut. The handler just saw his man deep, figured he would take a chance. It's been working so far. 7-4.
Georgia taking a timeout here, trying to break for half, getting their guys a little bit of rest, get a good universe line out there. Score updates real quick. Virginia tying the game at 12 versus Tufts. That game's going to universe. And we have Pittsburgh beating Illinois 15-10. Pittsburgh will advance with a first-round bye at quarters tomorrow.
You know, Brian, we've talked about this a couple times this year already about the parity in the college scene right now. Currently, Tufts, the quote-unquote #1 team according to the rankings right now. Normally, the #1 team in the nation isn't having universe games at a tournament like this. Certainly, there are good teams here, but I mean, the #1 team in the nation in any sport should routinely be cleaning up games and cleaning up especially easy teams.
Tufts is probably going to fall from the rankings after this weekend just because of the measure of close games and also the fact the opponents they've beaten earlier in the season have been ranked highly. And that really is what factors into it. They had a very good tournament, and those results really impact things. But yeah, Centex last weekend, they survived. And #1 teams, when they're going to be #1, they go out and they cream competition that they're supposed to cream. But Tufts is still surviving. They're still a good team, but #1, we'll see when we get to the series. Oregon, on the other hand, for the most part, has been dictating the games to the team. They haven't really faced a situation other than the Michigan State game this year where they have been down. They have been up and controlling games for the most part into the second half.
You know, and in the end, yeah, they haven't been crushing teams, but Tufts has been doing the most important thing, which is just getting the W. And that's what's most important at the end of the season. Once you get to nationals, it doesn't matter who's ranked what. It matters who's playing on Sunday and Monday.
Georgia with the pull and coming out in a very wide zone.
Yeah, this is that 1-3-2-1 look from Georgia. It's one mark, a three-man wall, two wings, and a deep.
This is what we call in upstate New York, the Christmas tree zone. Very susceptible to over-the-top throws, especially in the middle of the field, just like that. Jeffrey getting the disc over the top. Moved over to Funk. Again, wide open. You see the poppers right there. Jeffrey coming up. Jeffrey finding his man. Big layout for the score. Stanford keeping pace, 7-5.
Little man making a big play right there. Excellent bid. Excellent catch. Stanford hanging in there. Full extension.
It's interesting, even going back to that Stanford showed how easy it can be when you're going down one against a 1-3-2-1. The middle of the field is wide open. Usually you want your poppers to be very active, to come in, to move around. When you're facing a 1-3-2-1, you want your poppers to find the space in the middle of the field and stand there because the scoobers and the hammers are wide open. You want them to just kind of settle in, find that soft spot in the zone where they're farthest away from every other player. And then you want your wings to almost act as hybrid handlers and come back very shallow so that way they can get off the swings and look upfield quickly if need be. And after that, you let your one guy travel around deep and just wreak havoc if he can find an open position.
Right. As a cutter against zone, your job is not just to get open and catch the disc. It's also to pull the defenders to create spaces for your teammates. And Stanford did a good job there, just like you said, finding that space and just staying there until it's either respected or it gets thrown to them.
Funk with a terrific upwind pull, rolling out, giving Stanford a chance here to force Georgia to go the entire length of the field, but Georgia's shown that's been no problem for them with the Hucks lately. Finds Edwards underneath. Leonard, and what do you know, putting it deep again. Can't toe the line and make the grab. Would have been an excellent effort to make that catch.
Yeah, I like the shot. That's the throw and the attempt that's been working for them so far. And here's Stanford putting one up the other way.
Coming back underneath, the receiver makes the grab. Call on the play.
Take a look at that huck from Stanford. You're going to see that the Stanford receiver just makes a better, earlier read than the Georgia defender and is able to come away with it. Sometimes it's not about being more athletic, it's about being in the right position first.
Mills, Cody Mills with the disc. Over to Funk. Funk putting it out to space, hanging in the air. This wind's going to help this one. Can't make the grab.
You know, and I think Funk wanted a little bit more I.O. on that throw, and unfortunately in wind, it's going to take that throw and it's going to make it bend a little bit more than you want to. Unfortunately for Funk, this time it takes it out the back of the end zone.
Play restarts, Leonard. Funk falling for it, but underthrown to Walters. Stanford with the chance to break upwind. Put out to space, foul called on the play.
Stanford with mostly a vert stack in the end zone and then sort of one receiver. Now he's coming back as a handler. Let's see if they can create that space for the goal.
And they do.
Funk makes the play.
Ben Funk with the reception for the goal, and this game's closer than we imagined. Stanford creeping up back into against Georgia.
See Funk stepping all over the next-gen game disc there. See, this is what swinging the disc does for you. It changes the angle of attack and it creates easy throws. Swing and a miss on the kick spike, but the conversion on the step on it spike.
Now Georgia faced with the prospect to break upwind. Not really break upwind, but to score upwind to take half. And Stanford has a great opportunity to make it at least 7-7 before we get to halftime, closing on this lead. As it was pointed out earlier, Georgia susceptible to going on runs. Not a stranger to giving up big leads earlier this season. Pole goes all the way out the back.
And here's that, just like you were saying, that Christmas tree zone 1, 3, 2, 1 shown here from Stanford.
Through the cup, and a drop by Georgia gives it back to Stanford. And Stanford Big chance here. Funk and Jeffrey have not really left the field for this first half. Funk putting it out to Jeffrey. Too far.
Funk trying to make a play for his team, just didn't quite connect. So if you're wondering why this is called a, you're going to see it here in a second. If you're wondering why it's called a Christmas tree zone, it's because when it's set up in its perfect formation, it looks like an upside down Christmas tree. The mark is the trunk of the tree, and everything else is the tree.
One up, and then Stanford tries to get things going quickly, and it leads to a drop. Georgia coming back, trying to take advantage. Leonard. Finding Edwards. Big break through the zone. Trapped against the sideline. And forced to take a chance. Io backhand cannot reach the intended target, and Stanford will have another chance to convert on a sloppy possession by both squads. Jeffrey. Out the space, too far.
Getting sloppy here. It's the end of the day. Both teams have played a couple games, and they're just not executing as well as they had been earlier in the day. Lots of miscues so far on this point. And here we're just seeing almost a punt by Georgia.
Almost.
And another pancake drop for Georgia.
Foul called on the play. You know, going back to that trap situation after this highlight.
Yeah, we're going to see the stall count gets high. A few players are going to go up for the disc. I don't know exactly who's calling foul in that situation, but
it looks like the Georgia, right where there was a Georgia player involved in the tip. It seems like the Stanford player hit his hand. Looks like he high-fived him.
Congratulations, you didn't make the play. Way to go.
Preemptive high-five. Jeffrey starting things out. Funk is open, going to another target. Out the back. Going back to the situation where Georgia was trapped against the sideline, facing the Christmas tree zone, you have to have the handler in that situation come behind the man with the disc. That will drag the zone to guard him, and if they don't, that's an easy jump back, or then it opens up the line for the swing pass. And Georgia really did themselves no favor there by just leaving the handler astray on an island, essentially.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. You can see that there's nobody behind. There's nobody behind the defense right now, and Georgia's only looking upfield. Now, you definitely have to look upfield a little bit when you play against a zone, but you also need to make it a priority to swing the disc, and having that player behind the defense and behind the offense gives you that easy dump and opportunity for a swing.
Right now, going to a different handler set of two, you could come behind, and after we'll explain more, but there's a foot block right there on the field, and Stanford's going to get this disc, a short field goal. Long point here at 7-6, Georgia leading. Jeffrey looking for Funk, makes the catch in the end zone, and Stanford has tied this game at 7s.
Fantastic break throw here by Stanford, creating the goal, and that's just putting in the work on your own, working on your fundamentals. It's not what the cutter did. The cutter went to the right spot, but truly it's on the handler to have that throw in his arsenal. And you're going to see it right here. Just breaks it. Sort of I call it a half pivot, where you actually release the disc before your pivot foot hits the ground, and just get it out there. Get it out there to space. It doesn't have to be on target because your receiver has the space over there. It's on the break side. Just get it out to space and create the goal.
Score update. It looks like Tufts has come out victorious over Virginia despite having to go upwind for the score. Adrian Banerjee with a D, leading to Tufts to be able to work it upfield, and Alex Cooper hitting Piers McNaughton for the goal. Looks like, I wonder if there was thunder seen by the, lightning seen by the observer. We may have a severe warning, severe weather delay. Right now we're tied at 7-7, but we'll come back to the action once this delay ends. I'm Brian Jones and Mario Bryan here with Next Gen Network's coverage of 2012 College Easterns. We're back in Wilmington, giving you coverage of Georgia versus Stanford. Georgia receiving. Game tied at 7 right now. I'm Brian Jones here with Mario Bryan, Next Gen Network coverage of 2012 College Eastern. Looks like we've had a 30 to 40 minute lightning delay. Big bid by Stanford. Looks like there was some contact there. Coming out of this break, wondering who it's going to favor. There's a couple different ways to look at it. For one instance, Stanford been playing Jordan Jeffrey and Ben Funk a ton of points in this first half, and I think a layover will definitely help them. On the other hand, they've been on a run.
Yeah, you know, I think any way you slice it, it actually favors Stanford. If you're talking about legs, you want your stars to be able to play longer because that's what's going to make a difference down the line. You know, yeah, Stanford was on a run, but 7-7. I think advantage Stanford.
Play restarting out. Leonard looking back for Herrig, puts it out, and Stanford's defense has come out of this very tight play and overthrowing Walters. Picked up by Stanford, finding Mills. Middle of field, swung to Funk. We have a couple cutters stretching the field deep. Stanford opening things up, and Georgia just trying to catch up. Jeffrey, hammer to space to Funk, and that's for half, and Stanford takes half 8-7 after the delay. Looks like we'll have hopefully a quick half here and bring you the second half as they switch sides.
Yeah, Stanford here just makes an undefendable throw. As a defense, when that hammer goes up, you're just frozen. There's nothing you can really do. If it's windy, you might get a chance to make a play on that disc, but when you keep that hammer low and bladey and it's going to the other side, you're going to have an easy goal for the offense. Stanford capitalizing coming out of that break. Conditions have completely changed here. It was windy most of the day. Now after our rain and lightning delay, not much wind at all.
Some debate whether or not they're actually going to take halftime. It looks like they are going to take a halftime, and so this has been Next Gen Network's coverage of 2012 College Easterns. We'll be back with the second half action in a bit. And we're back here in Wilmington, North Carolina, as Stanford has taken a halftime lead 8-7 over Georgia. I'm Brian Jones here with Mario Bryan. Today's game is encoded by Elemental Technologies, providing video processing solutions to deliver streaming content to any screen, anytime, anywhere, all at once. So far, we've seen an exciting matchup. Stanford coming back after being down 7-4. Georgia, on the other hand, their keys to victory they've so far early on in the first half, they've been able to convert in those deep throws, Mario.
Yeah, they did a good job. They're taking shots. They're not trying to play too conservatively, and that was successful for them early. They also did a great job containing Jeffrey and Funk for Stanford early in the half, but later in the half, Funk especially was sort of operating at will out there for Stanford, and that's what allowed Stanford to creep back in the game. Now, a big factor here for Georgia is they lost Erickson early, and he's one of their key players. It'll be interesting to see if they can find someone to fill in that utility role that he plays for them, and see if someone can step up, rise to the occasion, and lead Georgia.
Right now the wind has died down, so this hucking game for Georgia can now go both ways, going into and with the non-existent wind. That storm that just blew through has apparently settled things down, and we should see a whole different second half as a result. It likely will mean no more zone. You can see the flag on the screen is not even moving.
And hopefully what this will lead to is just cleaner ultimate. You know, the ultimate that we've seen today has been entertaining, but I wouldn't call it good ultimate. You know, it's been entertaining, but you know, from a viewer standpoint, maybe from a fan standpoint, it's not what you'd like to see. But at the same time, you're seeing teams find ways to win. We've had 2 games that have come down to the wire, 2 universe point games. Certainly an exciting day here on the premier field at Easterns.
Georgia getting set to pull out of half. Stanford has recovered to make this on serve. Georgia went on a run to start out this game and has been susceptible to giving up leads. Stanford proving that one true so far. Jeffrey coming out from a side stack in isolation. Nice move by the underneath cutter. Funk trying to stretch the field, not available. Pick called, and that's why Funk is so wide open underneath.
Georgia came down man-to-man, and a lot of times if you just play man-to-man, that's the easiest way to allow a set play to develop. Most of the time, set plays are going to clear someone out of space and send a cutter into that space, and it's usually pretty easy to convert. In this case, it helped Stanford move the disc down the field. Unfortunately, an errant throw leads to a turnover.
It was a big bid, and looks like the observer has ruled him out. Tough play, Leonard over to Hartline. For Edwards, not available, back to Hartline. Dump swing action. Call on the play. It looks like someone's coming down with injury.
Georgia setting up their vert end zone set.
Looks like we have some support coming in from Georgia Tech Tribe, rooting for Georgia Ultimate to take this game for the Southeast. Bids on the line, and all teams are paying attention. Back to Leonard. Not much available upfield and just dinking it back and forth. Still not much movement available. Pick called on the play and just a little bit of disarray.
Stanford's doing just a great job dictating downfield, taking away the easiest option right now for Georgia. A busted defensive assignment here, trying to make up for it with a bid.
An underthrow by Georgia leads to a turnover. Jordan Jeffrey picking up the disc. Running 44. Underthrown to Mills. Funk with a turnover, and despite no wind, we're still seeing some sloppy play. Hopefully both teams will be able to settle down out of the break after the long break.
Yeah, the offenses look cleaner than they have looked, but the throws and catches just aren't there right now.
Leonard surprised that he's not taking a deep shot there, that Georgia's not looking for that option. Instead, choosing to move it underneath. Finding an option, overthrown. Too far for the intended receiver.
You can see the throw float out the back of the end zone. Maybe a gratuitous bid here.
I'd say this point is really important for Georgia here to capitalize on. Just come out of half. It's been a long point. You've already given up a lead. Your confidence is waning. And Stanford is trying to find the dagger. Just out of reach.
Tough play there for the Stanford receiver. It looks like if he just keeps his head down and goes at a full sprint for just a little bit longer, he might make it. Unfortunately, doesn't come up with a grab.
Georgia so far are 0 for 2 for converting on this possession. And they definitely look like they've been hurting on this layoff. Referee gets in position, makes the grab, foul called.
Georgia calling a foul here, but I think the Stanford player just made a better read and got inside position on it. Take a look at it, see if there was contact here on his hand. Couldn't quite tell there. Definitely a close play. You can see the Georgia defender really coming from out of position to make that play. Observer rules, no foul. Nice play on defense.
Scuba to Funk. Move back. Mills goes up and gets it. Georgia defense picking up a little bit. Good movement by Stanford.
Yeah, the style of the game has completely changed since the beginning. We saw a lot slower play, more deliberate, more zone earlier in the day and earlier in this game, and now we're actually seeing players' speed and athleticism come into play as they try to get open.
Interesting here, we have a lot of men upfield in a horizontal stack and bobbled. Still sloppy play, as you said, the throws and catches just aren't there right now. The offense is strategically flowing better, but the execution and the fundamentals. Cody Mills coming from behind the play, making sure that there was nobody else to pick up the swill. Interesting there. It looked like that had the potential to. You would want that throw to be thrown out a lot farther than it was, and there's no wind right now that we can see. That one yet still bladed over.
Right. The difference right now is Stanford's looks deep have been to moving cutters, and both of the times that Georgia has thrown deep, it's just been to a standing cutter.
And Mills moves in the right direction, gets the goal, and Stanford up 9-7, converting out of halftime.
Mills did a great job reading the disc, just goes up and makes an athletic play over the defender. He's lucky that the defender didn't see the disc coming. Otherwise, he might have had a play on it. He actually goes up and just reaches back over the defender's shoulder and makes the catch.
Stanford has done a good job when being on that 2/3 distance from the goal line of finding the right timing for their hucks. Georgia, on the other hand, has relied almost on a way of a bailout. And it worked when they had the downwind because that's how they were converting earlier. They were able to get those hucks to hang in the air, let a receiver from standstill go up and get it. Here, Stanford is actually executing on well-timed plays.
Yeah, Stanford has taken control of the game. They were down a few breaks early in the game, came back, tied it before we went into the break. Took half. We had a short half, and now they've come out and broken here in the second half. 9-7 Stanford.
Did he just time out?
Timeout called on the field by Stanford. Interesting call here. Not sure if they just were running out of time or what. Looks like things were running pretty smoothly for them. I don't know why they would take a timeout other than to rest, but they've had a long period. That was a long point.
You know, sometimes the coaches, even when things are going well, coaches see something that they want to adjust immediately. I'm guessing that Stanford had a specific adjustment that they wanted to make, and that's why they called a timeout.
We'll be right back with more coverage of College Eastern's 2012 Next Gen Network. And we're back in Wilmington, North Carolina. The wind has died down here, and Stanford has taken a 9-7 lead. Jordan Jeffrey with the pull. Georgia looking for a spark to get their energy back to go on another run like they did at the start of this game. Herrig finding Edwards. Speedy cutter underneath. Up to Walter. Finding Edwards. Leonard. Lots of Georgia cutters trying to stretch the field deep. Too many cutting at once.
Too many cutting at once, and everyone's just too deep right now. If you take a look at the stack, everyone's too far away, limiting their options as a cutter. As you can see, all the Stanford cutters know that they have to come under from right now. They're sitting underneath their men downfield.
Over to Leonard. Looking back. Finding Walter. Edwards, Herrig at the end zone, makes a beautiful cut to the back. Just can't get a hand on it.
Taking his frustration out on the water bottle there.
That was a very good kick.
You know, it wasn't the water bottle's fault.
Stanford.
And boots it.
Stanford working up the field. Swing it around, and we see Jeffrey on the field, but no Funk getting some rest.
This would be a big break here for Stanford. If they can manage to manufacture a break here without their stars on the field, that only means good things for Stanford.
And Georgia looks exhausted at this point. They just, I don't know how much they have left in the tank, and it's unfortunate for them because they have, if they lose this game, they're going to have to recover and play a pre-quarters game real soon. Overthrown, and Georgia just needs to get one on the board.
Yeah, their strategy from earlier in the game hasn't been working. You know, they're sort of put it up no matter who's down there. And Stanford has taken control.
Back to Edwards, now moving it quickly. Finding the break, good continuation, finally. Herrig, Walter with a great grab. Foul on the play.
A little bit of a dirty play there on the mark. I mean, it's one thing to not get the D, but you don't need to stand up and then intentionally foul.
Edwards just for the end zone, flips it for the score, and that's exactly what Georgia needed. I wonder if we'll see Mitch Dangler assess a TMF at all. Doesn't look like it.
You know, that's an excellent point for that D-line. Yeah, they didn't convert. They had an opportunity, they didn't convert, but they made Georgia throw a lot of passes. They made them work for it. They're grinding them down. Now, I wouldn't be surprised to see Stanford's offense come out here and have a very fluid point. Their offense has looked great this half. And get that D-line all revved up, back on the field, and get another opportunity for a break.
After being 4 for 4 early in the game in the red zone, Georgia now 1 for 4 in the second half and converting into the end zone. And they're 0 for 2 on Hucks. Looks like they're going to have to adjust on offense as well, try to find a way to consistently score. Stanford has control of this game right now.
Yeah, I think Georgia is a bit one-dimensional. From the footage I've watched, from watching them here, they live and die by the Huck. When it's working, they're in games. When it's not working, they shoot themselves out of games.
And it's unfortunate for them. The one player that can really afford to play small ball with them is Elliot Erickson. He's out.
Right.
And his injury I mean, it means so much. It's that one guy. He doesn't have to take control, but when you're in trouble, you can find him time after time.
Excellent lane cutting right now by Stanford.
Moving it around. Interesting, 2 handlers back. Still continuing with a basic side stack with 5 cutters downfield at one point in time. Finding Funk. Up the line. Put out the space. Perfect pass for the goal.
That's what I'm talking about, Brian. That was textbook open side offense. You put your player out into space, put the defenders on an island. No one wants to get beat and be the guy that allows the goal, so they give up consecutive unders, which lead to an easy goal going away.
It's unfortunate that Erickson is out. Would have made a big difference, but it's a smart move, even if it's just a tweak of the hamstring. Series means so much more at this point. Unfortunately for the Southeast, things aren't looking good towards a strength bid. Georgia losing to Michigan earlier today. They needed to have a good performance in order to make it in. Same with Florida. It looks like the Southeast may be relegated to just one bid once again, but that will make things incredibly exciting.
You know, that's tough for the Southeast, but you got to earn those bids, and they haven't so far.
We can talk all we want about the eye test and a lot of other things, but if you have the chance to come out here and win games, you got to win games. Leonard, center of the field. Edwards getting things going from the front of the stack. Finding Walter. Hartline taking his man deep, coming in underneath, and Mills coming in with a late bid. Edwards, though he had some space up the line, and found a bid into the back of Georgia receiver.
Yeah, that's a pretty tough bid. I think he was going for the reach around block there. What ends up happening is he just ends up wrapping up the offensive player. Pretty dangerous play there by Stanford.
I think it may have been Mitch Dangler. Actually, yeah, he did give a TMF for that. It's just a dangerous play.
You know, and that's an excellent job by the observer, setting the precedence and say, hey, if you're going to play like that on this field, this is the result. You're going to get a TMF. Immediately nips it in the bud. Hopefully we won't see that anymore.
Leonard. Looking around now, Georgia pinned along the sideline. Stanford defense trying to force them upfield and does so, but Hartline able to get open. Putting it to space. And Georgia building on a little bit of offensive momentum, staying in this game, and that's what you need coming out of half when you're down.
Yeah, both teams able just to execute an offensive plan both times. They just used the open side. They isolated cutters in space, made it really hard for those defenders to choose which option they were going to defend. And most defenders said, I don't want to be the guy that gets beat deep. Gainer, 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 goal. Yeah, the level of play has certainly picked up here in the second half. Much more fun to watch, at least from here.
Definitely starting to pick up the pace. We'll see if Georgia, eventually I think Georgia's going to have to return to the huck, and they're going to have to find a way to get players open. Stanford is doing a good job on offense of taking the right shot at the right time.
And here, I don't know if you can pick it up at home, but Georgia's sideline has picked up the volume, picked up the intensity, trying to get involved like they were in the first half.
Things get started on this next possession for Stanford, and everybody's packed in there in a vertical stack. No movement, but Jeffrey Springs was available deep. Now after the confusion, have some openings. Jeffrey putting it deep for Funk. Funk hanging.
Beautiful.
Doesn't get much better than that.
Beautiful throw by Stanford, and that all starts with the initial play and the space that they created by having that tight stack. When you have that tight stack, all the defenders are thinking who's going to go, which one is it going to be, and no matter who goes, they're going to have some space deep, and if your thrower can keep it flat, make it hang, you're going to get a goal most of the time.
And when you have a receiver like Ben Funk, you don't have to do too much there. Just put it out in front, and he's going to go get it. On the other side now for Georgia coming back on offense, the replacement for Erickson, if we're looking at one, has to be Caleb Edwards, Captain Caleb Edwards. He has to step up. He has to be that every other time guy if they're not going to sit there and let Max Leonard huck it, because Leonard is their go-to guy for the hucks. But if they're going to go and dunk it up the field, Caleb Edwards has to find a way to get open and raise his game here as we get closer to the end.
See the Stanford coaches out there giving explicit instructions about this defensive line. I'm guessing the Stanford coaches said that last point was way too easy for them, guys. We need to make a change. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw something different than just regular force flick on this point.
Martin Cochran knowing a few things about how to play defense, playing for Revolver, one of their captains. Center to Leonard off the start, and almost an identical vertical stack to Stanford's. Edwards starts things off with a cut from the back, putting it deep. Verhoeven goes up, gets his hand on it, can't complete the catch.
And timeout called by Stanford, recognizing that the game is getting late. Every possession is critical, and they need to score on this point.
I wonder if they're just using their timeouts as well for rest, because they need to keep guys going on. And we'll see after this point, this could be a game to 14, or if Georgia scores a game to 13, a soft cap has just gone off.
Yeah, you really want to use your timeouts if you can. I mean, you're not helping your team if you get to the end of the game and you have timeouts.
And and a lot of teams can look at that negatively way. So we're doing something wrong, so we take a timeout. No, just take the timeout, relax a little bit, have a rest, and then kind of refocus yourself and your energy and your efforts. Not every timeout has to involve a pump-up speech or an adjustment. Sometimes you're playing well, and the fact of the matter is you know that you're going to see some fatigue set in if you don't get your rest and you don't sit there and re-energize yourself.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just about, let's say you're trading offensive points. Sometimes you call a timeout, you bring it in and say, hey guys, all right, nothing's happened so far. Let's refocus, get some energy. Let's mix it up, get everyone on the same page, go out there, throw a wrinkle at the offense and try to create something. But defensively, you always, like we've been talking about all day, you always want to be dictating the game.
Jeffrey coming alive here, hitting Mills deep. Still well shut of the end zone. Centering the disc. And back for the handler, a nice dish. Looking for Jeffrey, big D by Georgia. Foul called on the play.
Observer rules, no foul, and he was right. That was just a great defensive play.
Looked like Hooten was deep, able to find him, finding Edwards underneath. Up to Walter. And right now, Stanford defense cannot find their matchups as Georgia has gained big ground easily. Now over to Leonard. Hooten just outside the end zone. Walter was there for the flip. Travel called on the play. All the way back to Leonard. As we go in the second half, so far Stanford has been 2 for 3 on their hucks, a much higher percentage than Georgia's 0 for 3. Leonard, his play restarts. A weird formation lined up for Georgia. Moved around back to Leonard. Finding Edwards. Pick called on the play.
Yeah,
Stays with Edwards.
The difference in style of these two teams offensively is obvious. Georgia likes to get their scores by either big throws and big catches or break throws, whereas Stanford, they're very methodical. They like a tight stack. They like to throw to space. They like to make the right decision at the right time. Both can be effective, and both have been effective so far in this game, and that's why it's a close game.
Stanford there able to have at least a chance at a break, and just Georgia got the D back on good inside position, able to sneak in a pass. They're huddling up and they're trying to get each other ready for the home stretch. This is a game to 13.
If you want to continue the conversation with us in between games, after games, you can hit us up on Twitter. Check out Brian's Twitter at NoLookScuba and mine at NGNMario.
We'll get to relax a little bit, watch some pre-quarters games, and watch some March Madness as we are venturing in the Elite 8 round.
Yeah, who you got? Who you got in the Final Four?
Well,
who did you originally have in the Final Four, Brian?
I'm just rooting for Syracuse. That's all I can say.
You know, every year except for the years when Syracuse is ranked number 1, I for whatever reason, I always root for Syracuse. I don't know if it's because when I was 11 years old and Syracuse was playing Georgetown when I was younger in sort of the glory days of John Wallace, and Georgetown had Dikembe Mutombo, Alonzo Mourning. That's how I remembered Syracuse and Georgetown. So for whatever reason, I've just been a Syracuse fan forever. And the only time I don't root for them is when they're the number 1 seed, because I don't like to root for the number 1 seed. So yeah, they're still in it this year. They beat up on my home squad, the Badgers, in the last round. But
it was a great game. Syracuse pulling that one out. Mario O'Brien, a man of the underdogs, a man of the people.
You know, you got to root for the underdog, man.
Georgia now coming out of the timeout.
Wait, Brian, who did you have in your Final Four? We didn't get there.
I didn't even fill out the bracket, man. I'm just rooting for Syracuse.
Just Syracuse? All right, I want to let everyone know my Final Four: Louisville, Wisconsin, Kentucky, and North Carolina. I got 3 out of the 4 still left possible.
Definitely a good bracket. And we'll talk a little bit about our Final Four for tomorrow here in the Easterns as we come back to the point. Stanford working upfield. Big cut underneath and just a pure drop. You hate to see that, but that's what we've seen all game. It's just a lack of execution of fundamentals. Hartline getting things started. Hooten.
Excellent downfield defense right now, locking up those downfield defenders.
Hartline. Up the line.
All of the downfield motion, or all of the yardage being gained right now from Georgia, is from their handlers. That's been two cuts in a row that have come either from the front of the stack or from the handler spot.
And they've hit the wide open man for the tie game. Georgia, energy has picked up. They're right back in it.
And Stanford opened this door for them by not being able to execute. You know, Georgia comes away with the goal right now, and if you're Stanford at this point, you might be wishing you had one of those 2 timeouts that you used, because Georgia is in dangerous territory. Stanford is in dangerous territory right here with Georgia stringing together a couple of breaks.
A 11-11, game to 13. Let's look a little bit towards tomorrow. We've seen some teams play today. We've seen teams play throughout Standard Invite. Who you got making semis, and who's going to be the eventual winner?
Man, my favorite team to watch today, at least on this field, was North Carolina. I really like the sort of the defensive package that they put together. I like that they play a non-traditional defense in that force middle, and honestly, I like to watch it because it puts a ton of pressure on those handler defenders, and I love watching that action. And North Carolina also has some great players who really took over that game when you're talking about Johnson and Sarah McCord. So I've got North Carolina. I've actually got Tufts. I think Tufts is going to get upset before semis tomorrow.
Bold prediction, but right now Georgia Stanford overthrowing Ben Funk. And we've got Hartline with the disc. Nope, going back. But still Georgia, a team of runs. Started out the game on a big run. Can they finish out this game with another one?
Take a look at the sideline. You can see everyone for Georgia waiting for this disc to be punched in so they can rush the field and continue the momentum.
Stanford really has to raise their game here. Somebody has to step up and make a play. Instead, it's going to be Georgia, 12-11. Celebrating as if they won. This game's not over yet. Stanford, though, is going to have to score on this next possession or else this game will be over.
You know, celebrating like the game is over, but there's an advantage to that big celebration. All of that momentum is going right in the ear of Stanford right now. And excellent job by Georgia picking up the intensity, letting Stanford know that they are in control of the game.
It's interesting. Bold prediction, you said Tufts will lose before the semifinals. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. Tufts has come off of Centex last weekend, went to spring break this weekend. It's only natural for a college team to be a little exhausted. And frankly, they could use a wake-up call. They've had scarce, close games, but they've made it to the semifinals, and they really need to know that they're still 2 months ahead. If they don't work for it, they're not going to do well at nationals.
Yeah, that's a team who's you know, they've done well enough this season to probably earn themselves a top seed going into regionals. And you're right. Sometimes the best thing for a team is a loss at this point in the season. Keep them humble, make them work hard to peak for nationals.
We got a tweet in from more cowbell. What's that I hear? Could it be the break train? 2-2. Looks like Georgia on a roll, finding underneath Cutter. Streaking deep. Everything now is going to be contested. Hesitation, even to put it to the handler, Funk. Stanford is responding well here. Finding a man just outside the end zone. Finding his man, toes the line, and he is ruled in. Let's see here. This is going to be a controversial call.
Take a look, see if he gets his foot down.
That's
pretty tough to tell. I think we're going to be able to see his toe down.
Caught, toe down. I think that's good.
Tough to say. I mean, that's one of those plays that if you slow it down, it makes it look like he controlled the disc and he was inbounds. But, man, on a bang-bang play like that in real time, that's a tough call. So we're 3 for 3, Brian. 3 games, three games on this field, all 3 going to Universport. What a treat.
We know how to pick them. Moving forward, even to more predictions, though, after this. UCF survived Wilmington today. It looks like they have the talent to do well tomorrow. It's going to be interesting to see. They're likely going to get a first-round bye. And it's great. I think Pittsburgh's got to be the favorite. But after that, you got to love the parity that we're seeing. Close games, like everybody's, and this is why Easterns is so great.
Yeah, Pittsburgh is certainly the favorite at this tournament. They play a style that's actually different than anyone's that we've seen so far.
this is for all the marbles here. Stanford will get an outright first-round bye should they score, and it looks like for Georgia it could come down to tiebreakers since they lost to Michigan. Be a three-way tie for first if Georgia pulls this one out. Center to Leonard. Finding Edwards. Walter. Pick called on the play.
So far at this point, Georgia very disciplined in their stack. A lot of space created in both lanes.
Play restarts. Looking back for Leonard. Hunting Walter. For an option. Going all the way back for Leonard. You can tell Georgia wanting to take the safe throw here. At some point, you're likely going to have to find a way to take a chance, whether it be break throw or a deep shot.
And that's tough for them. They haven't played it safe all game. I don't know if they've had a possession, maybe one or two where they took more than 3 or 4 passes to actually score the goal. Very patient here on Universe Point.
Field now back to Edwards, finding Leonard again. Moved upfield, still patient, only taking the underneath. Herrig finds separation. Looking back, overthrows Leonard. And there's the turnover that Stanford needs. Putting it deep for Funk. Leonard is there. Leonard has position. Funk almost gets the grab. Looks like Leonard is down with an injury. Looks like an ankle. Writhing in pain.
I'm going to take a look. This disc is going to go up. A big break backhand look. Let's see it. Looks like he just definitely turned his ankle when he came down. Unfortunate there for Georgia, especially at this point in the game. Looks like the throw's going to be coming back on a foul on the throw. Stanford there, that's one of the first times in the game that they've just said, okay, you're one of our best players. We need you to make this play. Everything up to that point has been a throw to space. That one was just said, hey, Funk, get funky, make the play.
It's interesting because Stanford has been the team that has played a little bit safer here and not taken the chances. And Georgia's relied on the momentum and that ability to find the open man, just get one big play that jump starts you. And Stanford has said, you know what, we're going to be patient. We're going to wait for this well-timed huck. And there I like Jeffrey saying, like you said, Funk be funky. Go up, make the play. You got to like your chances on a little bit more floaty of a shot. But he was fouled on the mark, it appears.
I mean, if it's your best player, an experienced player, put him in that position. So now we still see the vert stack here from Stanford.
Jeffrey going to Funk again. No, holstering it.
Defensive intensity has drastically picked up here for Georgia. Looks like they're playing a straight up mark on the Stanford handler, not allowing them to huck right now.
It really seems like to me that's what Stanford's looking for. And they want the one-shot kill here, but it's not coming. And they're going to have to find a way to just, even at this point, on the fly and get some things flow going upfield with some underneath cuts. In the middle of the field. Nothing much available. Jeffrey coming all the way back. Finding Funk. Putting it up high, overthrown. Mills comes down with it. Dumped back.
Funk's trying to do it downfield right now. I wouldn't be surprised to see in their end zone set if you see Funk come back to the disc and try to make something happen. Just get a dump and then make something happen with a break throw, maybe a hammer, just something to sort of get this offense an opportunity. Because right now, without him, they're struggling to find open cutters downfield.
So he's coming in on 0, and Mills with the disc. Jeffrey back with him. Play restarts. And back to Jeffrey, gets him back. Still dump swinging it.
Funk is just sitting in the back of the end zone right now.
Back to Jeffrey, who bobbles. Tight situation. Big grab after the IO break. Keeping it alive. Jeffrey, again looking for, finds his man for the goal, and Stanford has earned a first-round bye with a victory over Georgia. What a great second half.
You know, and that last point was exactly what you expect from Stanford. When you compare these two teams, you say Stanford, oh, they're methodical. They're gonna work the disc, and that's exactly what we saw on that last point. Yeah, they put that one up to Funk, which is still actually a good percentage play. Put it up to your best player. But when they didn't have the look, they stayed patient. They waited for the opportunity. They capitalized when it was there, and they're rewarded with a victory and a bye tomorrow, just like you said, Brian.
Jeffrey keeping it alive. Then the break throw.
Yeah, just a nice little, this is sort of just an easy, like I said before earlier in the game, it's sort of that half pivot backhand. It's not necessarily about beating them and getting all the way out. It's just about beating them more quickly, throwing it to space with that backhand.
Time for the play of the game. Brought to us by our friends at the Philadelphia Area Disc Alliance. PATA provides opportunities to learn, teach, and play Ultimate while fostering community, character, and competition with the greater Philadelphia region. Online at pata.org. Beautiful crossfield hammer to space. Into the wind at the time. Ensuing catch for the goal.
Well, Brian, 3 games, 3 universe point barn burners. All I can hope for tomorrow is that we get more of the same.
Yeah, it should be a great day. All these teams look even. The parity in College Ultimate is apparent. Can't wait to see what happens tomorrow in semis and finals.
Remember, we've got those big games coming up tomorrow. If you haven't already, feel free to upgrade to our high-quality screen. Upgrade your membership. The cost is only $10. And also with that $10 upgrade, you get access to all the footage that you might have missed for the next 30 days. On behalf of Brian Jones and Next Gen Network, I'm Mario O'Brien. Y'all have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.